During my recent 5-month visit to China, I realized that the Chinese army plays an enormously important role in the whole society. The People's Liberation Army, or PLA as it is usually called, is like no other army in the world. It is in fact much more than an army. It's a vast school of politics, engineering, agriculture, and medicine, and acts also as an immense reserve labor force. From the very first, Mao Zedong laid down the principle that the purpose of a people's army was to serve the people. The Chinese army began as a small guerrilla force which was setting out to overthrow the whole power of the state, and its very survival depended on the support of the people around it. One of the reasons for the success of the revolution, perhaps the main reason, was the army's close relationship with the people, and this they have maintained until the present day. This film doesn't concern itself with the higher levels of the military command, nor with the Chinese army as an international force, but rather with how the army operates on a day-to-day level. I believe that if we understand the principles on which the army is based, it will give us a good insight into China as a whole. Everywhere we went in China, we saw the army taking part in civilian activities. And here in the far south, in Yunnan province, a contingent of the PLA is helping one of the minority peoples, the Thais, to plant rice. To take part in civilian work is one of the accepted functions of the PLA. Standing armies in Western countries, at least during peacetime, are chronically underemployed. China, however, uses her military manpower for all kinds of work that directly benefits the people. Every military base, as far as we saw, attempts to serve the civilian population in its area. This medical team, for instance, has walked to this small northern village from their base 6 miles away. The unit comes here regularly and is on very friendly terms with the peasants. The military unit can provide more advanced medical assistance than is normally available to the peasants in this village clinic. In another village, we found a PLA unit helping to clean the streets. The army is largely a peasant army, so when the troops come to work in a village or help to plant rice, they are doing work they are accustomed to. Their peasant background also explains a certain simplicity of manner, a lack of sophistication. We didn't anywhere come across any of the usual spit and polish or military swagger. Soldiers and villagers assemble for a village meeting. These recruits were all born after 1949 and so never experienced what conditions were like before the revolution. It is part of their political education to listen to older people describe their former abject poverty and hunger. There was no way out, this man is saying. We were all suffering, but the authorities would not listen. The district officer just stood up and shouted at us. This soldier is saying, never again will these conditions occur. If the people suffer, we are here to help them. Sometimes it is the civilians who help the military. To learn some mechanical skill, these PLA men are being given some instruction from workers at a local factory. In winter, when work in the fields is impossible, peasants undertake major projects that will increase their agricultural production. Here, hundreds of peasants are digging an irrigation canal, and the army is organized to give them help. Members of the PLA are a highly politically conscious group of men with great influence, largely because of the example they set in their behavior. The sight of army officers and men working side by side with no difference in status is a striking political lesson to the peasants who are working with them. The army is responsible for training the civilian militia. China doesn't rely only on the PLA for her military security. Tens of millions of young men and women in China are trained for civilian defense. Being taught how to lay mines. China has never disclosed the size of her regular army, but foreign experts believe it to be around 3 million. In relation to our population, this is a small army compared, say, to that of the Soviet Union or the United States. In the event of invasion, however, the army could rely on the support of a vast people's militia trained in rifle fire and guerrilla tactics, an immense defense in depth.